Story 1. The first day on the front lines. Hey there, my name's Jack. I'm about to take you on a journey through my past. A journey that shaped everything about who I am today. What I'm about to share is a part of my life that has never left me. It's the story of the first day I was sent to Vietnam. A day that marked the beginning of a war that would change my life forever. If you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss the rest of the stories I'll be sharing about my time in the war. The people I met, the lessons I learned, and the brothers I lost. This is a story of survival, loss, and brotherhood. So let's dive in. The departure. The beginning of the unknown. It was the summer of 1967, and I was just 19 years old. I had just graduated high school, still figuring out life. I thought I knew what my future looked like, college, maybe some traveling, starting a family one day. But I was wrong. The draft came, and like so many others, I was pulled from the life I knew into something I could never have imagined. When I got the letter, it wasn't a shock. It was coming. Everyone was getting drafted, but even though I knew it was inevitable, it still hit hard. I didn't even have time to think. I was just told. One day I was just a regular kid, and the next I was told to pack my bags and leave. There was no time for goodbyes. No chance to say goodbye to the things I took for granted, my friends, my home, my family. The day I left, there were no tearful goodbyes or grand speeches. No fanfare, just an awkward silence. It wasn't until I hugged my mom that I felt the weight of it all. She tried to hold it together, but I could see the fear in her eyes. My dad was quiet, as always. He didn't say much, but when he looked at me, his eyes told me everything. The firm handshake, a simple, "take care," were the only words I got from him. The kind of goodbye you give when you're unsure if you'll ever see that person again. I remember thinking it was all too quick, too sudden. I'll never forget that drive to the airport. It felt like time was stretching, every second lasting longer than the last. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go or if I was scared to stay. The fear of the unknown gripped me, and yet, I didn't show it. I didn't want my family to see how much I was struggling inside. In my mind, I kept thinking about the guys who were already over there, fighting. And I wondered if I was really ready for what awaited me. But you can never really be ready, can you? The plane ride was surreal. Hours upon hours of nothing but a dull hum. The occasional whispers of other soldiers trying to pass the time, and the constant churn of my thoughts. The realization hit me like a brick wall. I was leaving everything behind. My life, my dreams, everything I thought I would have. It was all left behind in the blink of an eye. The plane soared through the sky, and America, the home I'd always known, got smaller and smaller. The world I knew was slipping away, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was flying into something I wasn't ready for. Arrival. The reality hits. When the plane finally touched down in Vietnam, it felt like stepping onto a different planet. The heat hit me like a freight train, thick, suffocating, and relentless. The air was a mix of earth, smoke, and something I couldn't quite place. It was heavy, and the noise, the incessant buzzing of insects, the chatter of soldiers, the sound of distant gunfire, everything felt too loud, too much. I could barely hear myself think. Stepping off the plane, everything looked foreign. The landscape was all jungle and trees. The ground was slick with mud, and I could feel the humidity pressing against my skin like it was trying to choke me. There was no welcoming committee, no cheering crowds, just soldiers moving quickly, doing their jobs, acting like they had done this 1,000 times before. The older guys in the unit were moving with purpose. But the rest of us? We were just kids, unsure of what we were about to face. I felt so small, like I didn't belong. I could hear the sounds of helicopters in the distance, the faint rumble of artillery, and the occasional crackle of the radio. Everything around me was moving with purpose. But I was standing still, trying to make sense of this new reality. When we reached the base, we were given our gear and told to get ready. No time for questions, no time to process anything. We were just told what to do. There was no welcome or time to adjust to the place. We were thrown into it, like we were just another cog in a much larger machine. The reality of the situation hit me harder than I expected. This wasn't some training exercise. This was war. I looked down at my M16. I'd trained with it, sure, but this was different. The weight of it felt so much heavier here. It wasn't just metal, it was responsibility. It was survival. Holding that rifle for the first time in the jungle, I felt its weight, and I realized this wasn't just about pulling a trigger. This was about staying alive, staying grounded, staying human. The first battle, facing the fear. It didn't take long for us to get our first taste of combat. We were sent out on patrols almost immediately. I could feel the tension building in my chest, my heart racing with every step we took into the thick jungle. We knew the enemy was out there. We just didn't know where. Every shadow, every rustle in the leaves made my body tense. My mind was racing, and I couldn't focus on anything except the next step. And then, it happened. A shot rang out. It echoed across the jungle, and everything seemed to explode at once. Gunfire, shouting, the sound of the earth shaking from explosions. My instincts kicked in. I hit the ground hard, diving behind the nearest tree. My heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear anything else. I remember Tom. He was one of the first guys I met when I arrived. He was always calm, cracking jokes to keep us from losing our minds. He had this way about him, always knowing what to say to lighten the mood. But now, I saw it in his eyes, the fear, the uncertainty, the same fear I was feeling. But in his case, he was the one trying to keep the rest of us calm. I saw him standing there, rifle in hand, when a shot rang out. And just like that, Tom was gone. He fell to the ground like a rag doll, his body going limp in the dirt. For a moment, I couldn't move, I couldn't think, I just stared at him, my brain refusing to accept what had just happened. This wasn't training. This wasn't a drill. Tom was gone. I was paralyzed. I couldn't process it. It felt like the world stopped. But I knew I couldn't stop. I had to keep moving. Had to stay alive. That was the moment when everything changed. It was no longer about just following orders. It was about surviving. The fear was real. The death was real. And from that point on, I wasn't the same person who boarded that plane. Life in war. Surviving the days. Every day after that was a struggle to stay alive. I didn't have time to think about the future, about the things I'd left behind. There was only the present. And the present was filled with fear, chaos, and survival. The days blurred together, one battle after another. The heat was unbearable. The constant movement drained us. The fear never stopped. We were always on alert, always ready for the next ambush, the next shot, the next explosion. The sound of gunfire never left my ears. And when it wasn't there, The silence felt deafening. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tom. I saw the faces of those who fell beside me. At night, when we finally stopped moving, I couldn't sleep. The quiet was worse than the noise of battle. I thought about home. I thought about my mom, my dad, my friends. I wondered if they thought about me. I wondered if they'd ever hear from me again. The fear of not going home, of never seeing them again, gnawed at me every night. The final lesson: living with war. As the weeks and months went by, I learned what war really was. It wasn't about heroism. It wasn't about winning battles or achieving glory. It was about survival. War doesn't give you time to process, to think. It just happens. You just keep going. You keep moving. You fight not for glory, but because you have to. You fight because if you don't, you don't make it out. Every day was a battle, not just against the enemy, but against the fear. When I left Vietnam, I wasn't the same person who had boarded that plane. I couldn't be. War changes you. It takes something from you. But it also teaches you something you can't forget. Survival is everything. Thanks for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, if you want to hear more about the struggles, the losses, the lessons I learned during my time in Vietnam, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll be sharing more stories from the front lines, and I'd love for you to follow along with me. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Let's remember what our soldiers went through, so we can honor their sacrifices.